Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Matthew Shapiro from Obermeyer, the law firm. And we have a great lineup of guests for you on our show today. Matthew, will you please give us the rundown?
I would love to, Herb. It's going to be a great show. We're starting off with Ron Scheese, the president and CEO of Andesa Services. Then we have Jessica Hirt, the president of Concorde. Following that, we have Patrick Maggitti, the provost of Villanova University. And we're wrapping up with Brian Pickell, the CEO of KPInterface.
Let's get to our first guest, Ron Scheese, who's president and CEO of Andesa Services. What is Andesa Services? What are you guys doing?
So Andesa is a software and services company out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. We serve the life insurance industry.
Mm-hmm. How large or how small is this company?
180 employees, about 17 clients, all the big national insurance companies.
Uh-huh. And how'd you get a job with this company?
So I started here 14 years ago as CFO and then was promoted to CEO about 5 years into my journey.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from originally?
Small town of Coaldale, Pennsylvania, coal regions, hour north of Allentown.
How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
So I'm one of five, and I am the middle child.
Uh-huh. So how young were you when you were stepping up? Because I picked up you started as CFO and you moved into the role of CEO. How young were you when you were stepping up with your friends?
So I was probably about 10, 11, 12, just, a bunch of friends sitting around and just kind of organizing them, getting them into doing different things, exploring. We would just organize trips like to the coal mines. I'd find an elder from our church to take us on different journeys like that.
So you were coming up with ideas of what you and your friends could do, like finding an elder to take you to the coal mines, and you were organized. So you came up with idea, you organized your friends. What's that have to do with the reason that they chose you to be president and CEO of Andesa Services?
So I think it's just, the role of the CEO is sort of visionary, and I think it's that idea generation. And then I know within my skill set, my Clifton Strengths Finders, my number one talent is learner. My number five talent is activator. So I love to start things. I love to just go do something, and then that feeds my learning, and we can adjust. And I think that's sort of how it plays into my day-to-day role as CEO.
So you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth?
Far from it. Just pure poverty. I mean, my dad was a blue-collar worker, World War II sergeant, tractor-trailer driver, coal miner, 5 children. We didn't travel. I lived in Coaldale.
Mm-hmm. You didn't travel because you didn't have any money. It wasn't the nature of what you were doing, and you grew up in a lot of poverty. Let me ask you a question. Why'd you stick it out with this organization known as Andesa Services?
I just love first off, love the people. And I think it's the first job that I think I found where my personal values and the company values are really in alignment.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
So again, I've been in Big Four public accounting. I've been in a NASDAQ traded technology company. I've done healthcare and senior living. But there's just the whole vision of Andesa is helping our employees become better people and helping our clients reach their full potential. Mm-hmm.
Matthew?
Yeah, Ron, what sports did you play growing up?
So I played baseball, football, basketball.
And what was your favorite?
Baseball, although my least talented.
Least talented, but that was your favorite. What position did you play?
I was a catcher.
Why'd you like catcher?
Because if you love baseball, you love it as an intellectual game. So as the catcher, you kind of have the whole field. You know the situations. Everything stems from that role, that position.
And I'm fascinated that you just said that you had the least talent at baseball. How did you overcome what your perceived lack of talent?
I couldn't hit a curveball, but it was all intellectual. It was the mental aspect of the game that kept me at it and just kept me plugging away at it. I loved it. I just love the mental aspect of it.
So what does catching and loving the mental aspect of baseball have to do with what you're doing today?
I think it's very similar. I mean, as a CEO, you just kind of look out at the field, you look out at what's going on, and you try to make adjustments, and you got to know what's coming, who's coming up next, what's coming up next, and you just really try to keep everything in perspective from behind the plate.
So when you weren't catching as a kid, how young were you when you had a job?
It's probably like 13, 14, a couple of blue collar, heavy labor jobs in the area.
And tell me what your jobs were.
So first job was working on a farm, helping to bale hay. Another working maintenance at the community swimming pool. Worked at a lamp factory. Just moving merchandise.
But you told us that you didn't take those jobs by yourself, did you?
No, it was always with my friends. So just a small group of friends that grew up, and we all kind of just would get jobs together doing work like that.
Well, why were you getting those jobs with your friends?
Just something about teamwork. Just something about sharing the journey, sharing the burden.
And tell me, at what point in your career did that kind of teamwork thing fade away as you lost your friends?
Oh, it hasn't. Still hasn't. I think that's what this is all about. I think about, at Andesa, we call ourselves a family and a team. And I think that family is all about the relationships. It's all about the friendships. It's about the way we treat one another, that trust. And then the team is all about the results. It's all about the initiative and the responsibilities and how we work that through.
So you think you kind of got the same, is that really possible? You got the same thing going now with like your senior leadership as you had with your buddies working on the farm?
I said it was the first company where I could find the alignment of my values, personal values with my company's values.
And I was also struck, I think that you told us you were the middle of 5 kids, which is a really kind of interesting thing. Tell me what that did to you growing up.
And it's an 18-year gap from my oldest to my youngest sibling. So your brother becomes the role model. You try to live up to his athletic prowess and academic prowess, and then you're younger, you kind of become that role model for them. And they're a little bit closer in age to me than my older brother, but you just try to help them navigate life.
Tell me how young you were when you were first doing that for your younger siblings.
Oh, I was probably 10 and my brother was 7. And, and again, at that age, you bring your brother into that friendship group. You carry him along and you pick on him, don't get me wrong, but you also, you bring him along and you protect him in that group as well.
How do you protect him? Tell me when you protected him.
Oh, you don't let others pick on him. You can pick on him because he's your brother. You don't let your friends pick on him. You make sure you protect him.
That sounds like a great family. Tell me a little bit about Mom.
So Mom, just a servant heart, very smart, graduated like first in her class. Sparky was her high school nickname. She lit up a room when she walked in, but very sacrificial, always giving. She would give you everything she had.
And are you more like Mom or Dad?
Much more like my mother, and I think a lot more in that servant and giving and just appreciating life.
And you actually told us, and I think this is related to that, you told us that you recently sold the company to the employees. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so January 2nd, Andesa's owners sold the company to an ESOP, and the employees now own 100% of the company. It was a way to really honor the employees who built the company, and means that we're going to be private and we're going to try to keep this company going for 100 years and serve our clients and our community and those who labor here.
Longevity is important to you?
Yeah, longevity and loyalty, I would say. I think as CEO, you kind of look out, you're trying to build something for 25 years. And I think in my current role, it's part of a transition from the original owners and the original generation through my generation to the next generation. So much of what I do is trying to build that next generation for future leadership of this company.
Where'd you get that from in your childhood?
It probably just the way we grew up, right? Your brother takes care of you, you take care of your brother, family, it's all important, and you're going to be around as a family forever, and your cousins and your nephews and your nieces are all going to be part of that family, and you're going to just try to stay tight as one. What'd
your dad do for a living? Was he an executive?
Oh, no, he was a truck driver, and he shoveled coal at the end of his career.
What did you learn from your dad, the truck driver and the coal shoveler? Does anything to do with your being this really tuned-in CEO?
So the importance of hard work, he worked really, really hard. And again, I think best advice he ever gave me was get an education, sit behind a desk so you do not have to work as hard as I work every day. And it sort of motivated me to be a learner.
It sounds to me, though, like you do work hard every day. It's just a different kind of work.
Oh, it is. And I do love what I do. And I'm grateful for the education.
What do you love about what you do?
Helping others. Again, I think in my role is basically to serve the 180 employees that we have here and help them serve our clients. And so helping them become better employees better people, not necessarily their role, just be a better human and be a better servant to the community.
What's the website address of this organization known as Andesa Services?
AndesaServices.com, all one word.
We've been speaking with Ron Scheese. He's the president and CEO of Andesa Services here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, it's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, stick around. Don't go away. We will be back in a moment, right after this brief spotlight.
You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors.
We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Jessica Hirt, president of Concorde. Jessica, what is Concorde? What do you guys do?
Sure. Concorde is an employment screening and occupational health service company specializing in DOT compliance.
Mm-hmm. How large or how small is this business?
We have about 55 employees.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you get a job with this company?
So it's actually a family business. My father started it in 1983, and I started working there when graduating college.
Mm-hmm. How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the youngest of four.
And where are you from originally?
I'm from South Philadelphia.
Matthew?
So Jessica, I understand you had a baseball career when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I started playing t-ball up until what we call the major league there, and softball in middle school and high school. I played in a little league called Taney Baseball that my father started in Center City, Philadelphia, and it was a co-ed league.
Well, why did your father start the league?
He started the league because he had put us into Fairmount baseball and was unhappy with the way it was being run, and his entrepreneurial spirit got him with, organizing other parents to start Taney baseball.
And it seems like you've said that a couple times, like in family lore, the fact that he started the league is a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely part of our legacy. It's now it was a nationally recognized league. So.
And so when you were playing on this, I think you said it was a co-ed teams, is that right?
Yes.
And so co-ed teams, it was like a mix of boys and girls evenly split?
Not evenly split most of the time, especially as I got older. I was usually the only girl on the team.
What was that like, being the only girl on the team?
I didn't really know any different, so it wasn't really an issue for me. Never had any issues with the other players. Well,
you actually mentioned in the green room, if I remember correctly, there were no issues with the other players. But that gave me the sense that you understand how to handle people. Is that true? Because the boys didn't hassle you? You wouldn't let them?
Yeah, exactly. I think it gave me the preparation in going into the business world that can be male-dominated, and just being able to handle myself.
Mm-hmm. You told us, and I asked you what was the key characteristic. You told me it was because you were empathetic, and I'm trying to figure out how an empathetic girl could fight off the boys. I don't understand that.
I think empathy is understanding and taking on other people's feelings, and I think being able to do that and understanding where people come from and adjusting how I act and approach people.
Does that have anything to do with your business success?
Absolutely. I think being able to manage 55 different people, personalities that come from different backgrounds, I don't treat everybody the same. I treat people based off of where they're coming from and what will make them most successful.
Matthew?
Where'd you learn that, how to treat people in a way that would make them the most successful?
I think my time in playing baseball and being kind of the outsider. And then also, I think going to a Quaker school, honestly, one of the values you learn there is there's a light in everybody, and trying to understand everybody's background and what they bring.
And it's actually fascinating to me that you just talked about what you learned from the Quaker school, because you actually tell us what your earliest job was.
Sure. So my first job was at 13. I was a teaching aide at my synagogue.
And how is that when most kids are running away from the synagogue that you were staying at the synagogue and getting a job there?
I think I was motivated at that time by two things: that I enjoyed being there, I enjoyed the community, and also I always had this drive to want to make money and be independent.
Where'd the drive to make money come from?
I think from my father. I think, he always instilled that, you should really be a self-starter and not rely on other people.
How do you instill that in you?
I think by having me hang out in his office after school most days, also having me earn money through doing different chores at work, not just kind of handing anything over to me.
And I think you said your mom worked there too, is that right?
Yeah, she did work there. What'd
she do?
She was the vice president while she was working there.
What was it like watching mom and dad work together?
It was interesting. I mean, it's nothing I never really knew any different there, but it was definitely interesting to see the dynamic, especially because I now work with my husband. So you learn different things and what to do and what not to do.
Tell me more about that.
So I think, when you work with your spouse, having that division, about bringing work home and how you approach work while you're there with other employees, I think just what those boundaries are.
And tell you said you were doing small chores for a little bit of money when you were a little kid. So tell me about your history with the company. Like, I guess you did small chores as a kid, and then I assume you came back and went to the top, right?
Exactly. So, after school, I would be, filing different things and stamping documents. And then when I started working, I started in an entry-level position and worked my way up.
Why'd you start in the entry-level position?
Because I didn't know the company at that time.
Whose idea was that?
I think it was mine and my dad's collectively, but I wanted to start at the bottom because I didn't want to come in and, I was also young. I didn't know how to run a company. And
so tell me about the path up to where you are now.
Sure. So I worked in pretty much every job in the company, and as I learned more, I started to get into customer service position, which you really have to know the entire company, and then managing that whole department, because I think people saw me as a leader because I pushed people to do more and learn more, and then eventually becoming the president.
So you got people who I assume knew you as a little kid to see you as a leader. Tell me how you did that.
I think by coming in with humility and showing that I wanted to learn, I think that really helped.
Tell me more about that.
I think sometimes there's a perception when a child comes into their family company that they feel some sort of ownership and that they're going to come in and boss everybody around. And I really was cognizant when I came into the company that I needed to prove myself and show that I'm not coming in thinking that I own everything, and that I really want to learn and I want to improve myself and the company.
What was I understand that you not only went to Hebrew school, but you ended up taking a role as a teacher there. And what did you enjoy about teaching Hebrew school?
I enjoyed the creativity of creating lesson plans. I worked with pre-K, so you have to be a little bit more creative in how you're going to teach religion and Hebrew, the actual language, to them. So just coming up with different ideas of how to do that was really exciting. What's
that teaching Hebrew school have to do with your being the president of Concorde?
I think it relates to creative problem solving because, with 4-year-olds, you really have to be on your toes all the time. And I think also just training and even teaching clients, we work in a very regulated industry and teaching them what they need to do to stay compliant.
So you like laying the tracks for others, whether it's kids or whether it's clients, like developing the processes that can help people succeed? Is that part of who you are?
Absolutely. I'm always looking to help others and not, like I said, not that I have one process and this is going to work for everybody, but finding what's going to work for that individual person or that client.
But you don't sound like it's all about the money, the money, the money.
I think obviously that's part of it, but I think it's about the experience too that the client has.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
So everybody is different, and I think when the reason we keep clients for so long is because we work with them. We're a partner. We're not telling them how they should do things. We're working with them to get them to succeed.
Mm-hmm. You're really adding value to their organizations, it sounds like. Sounds like they really know they can depend on you.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. What's the website address for this organization known as Concorde?
It's Concorde2000.com. That's 2000.com.
Let me have that one more time.
Concorde2000.com.
We've been speaking with Jessica Hirt, president of Concorde, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment, right after this quick break. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Patrick Maggitti, who is the provost of Villanova University. Patrick, what is Villanova University? What are you guys doing?
We're a Catholic university with about 7,000 undergrads and 4,000 graduate students.
Wow. And you're the provost there. What do you like about your job as provost at Villanova University?
I'm very lucky to be able to come into a place every day where individuals, young individuals, are really having their characters formed. They're learning new things, and we have the opportunity to help them launch them into great careers and lives. Where
you from originally?
I'm from Whitehall, Pennsylvania, just outside of Allentown.
How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I am one of 6. I'm 5th out of the 6.
Mm-hmm. So how young were you and we were talking in the green room earlier, and this character thing, this character development thing is really struck me as being part of who you really are. How young were you when this character became so important to you? What was going on in your childhood?
I think it was always important. Growing up in a small community, we were very involved at our local church. We went to that Catholic grade school, and it was always just part and parcel of our lives to think about how you act, how you treat others. And I don't think you realize your character's being formed, but that's when it was happening.
And this was a small community that
Yes.
you grew up in. And do you think the smaller community had a greater impact or a lesser impact on this character formation and your sensitivity?
I think it has a greater impact, because I can think of a lot of dads and other moms who, you get to know so well, they get to know you so well, and sort of the community is looking out for you, and they have maybe expectations for the way you're handling yourself.
Matthew.
So tell us about your dad, Patrick.
My dad worked for a plumbing and heating contractor. He was a very devoted family man and made sure to be home for dinner every night. And he was someone that people would always look to for help or advice. Great sense of humor, and was beloved by the community, I would say.
And what about Mom?
Mom did a terrific job managing a household of 6 and making sure everybody was where they needed to be when they needed to be there. And she supported my father in so many ways, and they really looked out for each other as well.
You mentioned your father was really well respected in the community. That's very important to you. What's that have to do with who you are?
Well, I think, try to live up to someone like that, where people thought so highly of him. He was someone who was quick to a joke, and but also was someone who tried to carry himself in a way that I think people respected. So as I live my life trying to think about how he did his, there's something to be lived up to there.
Well, there's that character thing. Jessica?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you think you're more like your father or your mother.
I'm probably a lot like my father. He was, again, someone that people went to and looked for help to. And so there's, I find myself in that position oftentimes, and it's one that, I enjoy and am honored by. I think there's, a lot of elements of my mom as well, who was someone who's a great conversationalist and would always probe into people and get to know their backgrounds and things.
So what'd you get from mom that you bring to work every day?
My mom always, I'd say both of them, but particularly my mom, she always made sure that we looked presentable and that we were sort of put together. And, really presented ourselves in a way that wouldn't embarrass ourselves or the family, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Ron?
Patrick, we talked in the green room about having the similar being the recipient of hand-me-downs. How does that impact your leadership as provost at Villanova?
So our family certainly was one that hand-me-downs were a big part of growing up. And, when you get hand-me-downs, especially from three older sisters, you have to figure out how you're going to make and adapt and use these items. So, it's, I think, in an organization where you're always strapped for resources or you're certainly resource constrained, we're always looking for ways to adapt and to reach our goals and to do the best we can, despite the fact that maybe we don't have all of the resources that we might desire to have in order to make things happen.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, how young were you when you started making money? What were you doing?
At the age of 12, I worked for a neighbor who owned a sewing center. They sold sewing machines and beer meisters, beer coolers.
So when you got hired there, what were you hired to do? What did you do?
I would mind the shop in the owner's absence. So I'd receive, customers would come in, either drop off sewing machines or they were looking at purchasing a beer meister. And so I handled just about everything that possible when the owner wasn't present.
So the owner trusted you to open and close, to take the cash, to sell, not to steal, to stock the shelves, to clean the place. You're 12 years old. Isn't that a little strange? I don't know. It doesn't seem strange to me. Maybe in today's world it is, but yeah, you're exactly right. Mm-hmm. And I also understand that weren't you the first one to go to college in your family or something like that?
I was the first one to go off to college out of the six of us. It was something that was a very big deal in our family.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Where did you get that drive to be the first to go off to college?
I had an uncle, my mom's brother, who had been to college, and that's about the only person or one of the only people even in my extended family that had ever been to college, and he became a doctor. And, I could see the pride sometimes maybe that my mom had in talking about her brother, the doctor, and just always aspired to follow in those footsteps to some extent.
And you said earlier in the green room that there were big sacrifices in the family for you to be able to do that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, sure. I mean, we were not a family of means, and to go off, go to college somewhere, was a very big deal. It took a lot of sacrifice on my parents' part, and a lot of loans, and a lot of pulling things together. When I was in school, I was fortunate to be able to have a number of jobs. So I oftentimes during my 4 years was working full time while going to school full time. So it was sacrifices across the board.
How did it make you feel to see your parents going through those sacrifices to send you to school?
I don't know how much you think about it at the time, but in retrospect, it's again a pretty tremendous thing and very selfless act to want for your kids to have better than you had. I can understand it now, but I'm not sure I even appreciated it then.
And how does that experience and the changed appreciation of what your parents did, what's that got to do with what you're doing as provost now?
Well, as a first generation college graduate and college student, I mean, I never lose sight of what we're doing here, which is, we're helping students find themselves as people, but ultimately we're also helping them find careers and occupations that make them happy and satisfied and pay the bills, so there's a very pragmatic aspect to a college education that has to do with those types of outcomes.
So I'm guessing as provost that you've removed yourself from interaction with the students, right? You let you lower down people interact with the students?
No, I enjoy, to the extent that I can. I mean, that's something I love doing. It's, as a faculty member, when I was a faculty member, I had so much interaction with students, and that is the best. Unfortunately, in my role, I don't get to do that as much, but I do love interacting with them when I can.
Patrick, didn't we discuss, I don't know if we discussed on the interview, I know we spoke in the green room about your baseball career.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a career, but I loved baseball, played it all through, my childhood. It's one of my
What was your role on the baseball team?
I was a catcher, like
Ron. You were the catcher on the baseball. Why did you want to be the catcher?
I just like being part of the action, and as catcher, you're basically the field general, and you are sort of observing the game, and you're seeing what people are doing in various positions and how you can give them feedback, move over, move to the left. There's a pull hitter, move to the left, and pitchers and giving them some guidance. It's a great role.
What's that similarity between being the catcher on your baseball team as you were a kid and being the provost of Villanova University?
I think there's a lot of similarities there in that you are looking at the skills and what things people can bring to the table, and you're finding the best position for them to be in, and you're guiding them, without you're doing it yourself. I think, in a managerial role, you're always trying to utilize and elevate those that are working with you.
Website address for Villanova?
Villanova.edu.
We've been speaking with Patrick Maggitti, who's the provost of Villanova University, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. Learn more about our executive leaders, executiveleadersradio.com. Back in a moment, right after this quick break.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Brian Pickell, who is CEO of an organization known as KPInterface. Brian, what is KPInterface?
We provide outsourced managed IT solutions for small and mid-sized businesses in the greater Philadelphia region.
Huh. How large or how small is the team?
We're almost 30 people.
And how'd you get a job with this company?
I founded it 14 years ago.
You founded it 14 years ago. And where are you from originally?
Norristown, Pennsylvania.
How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I have two older brothers.
Two older brothers. And didn't you mention something in the green room, something happened when you were about 8 years old in the family?
Yes. My parents, unfortunately, were divorced when I was 8.
Mm-hmm. So what was the effect of your parents' divorce on the dynamics of the family?
Well, it's a couple of things. Number one, it made my brothers and I much tighter. We understood that we were going to have to rely on each other and help each other to overcome this adverse situation. But it also, I think maybe made my parents even better parents because they knew they had to be around more and they had to, make sure they were supportive of us even though they weren't going to be together.
So you knew, because mom and dad got divorced and it pulled the brothers together, you knew that in times of trouble, as opposed to separating and getting angry and beating the hell out of each other, to stick together. I'm wondering how that's had an effect on your team building, and you're building the business.
Absolutely. Well, naturally in any type of organization, you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have sometimes where people just don't see eye to eye. I think that tension is natural, and I think it's actually positive, because out of that tension comes creativity, comes new ideas, but you have to have people involved. And I play this role often where I'm kind of the referee. I'm kind of the leader who's going to bring these people the best of both people together and get the most out of both.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. Matthew?
You were telling us in the green room a little bit about your father. Can you share that?
Sure. My dad was an insurance underwriter, and he also, though, worked on weekends for about 30 years as a drummer in a band, and did about 3 or 4 gigs a weekend.
Did you ever go with him to some of the gigs?
I sure did. We used to travel with him and the band to different places. Sometimes he played at malls. Sometimes it was some other type of large private function.
And sometimes we ask people if, kind of they shared in tasks at mom or dad's work. I'm guessing you didn't get to go up on the stage or anything like that.
Quite the contrary. I actually followed in my father's and my grandfather's footsteps being a drummer. And when I was about 11 years old, my father saw me out there in the audience and said, "Hey, you want to go up and play with the band?" And it was a little nerve-wracking, but sure enough, I went up and played on the stage.
Had he given you any warning he was going to do that?
Maybe like in between, on a break in between sets, he would come over and say, "Hey, listen, why don't you come up next set, and we'll do a song that you know and like, and we'll get you up there."
That must have been overwhelming. How did you deal with the stage fright?
Well, I think what you do is you focus on what you know best, and I was confident in my drumming ability, so that was one thing. The other thing was that his own band members made it easy on me. They liked to kid and joke and tell me how I was doing better than my father. So it gave me some confidence. And then once you're up there and you're playing in front of a live audience, you thrive off of that eventually.
And does learning how to get up there on stage and learning how to perform in front of the audience, does that have anything to do with what you're doing today?
No question. It gives you a certain level of confidence to be a leader, to get into tough situations and to overcome them.
Patrick? Nope. Patrick?
Yeah, Brian, earlier you mentioned something about the importance of faith, and so I was just curious how that plays into both your personal and professional life.
Sure. My mom was Catholic. My dad was Lutheran, but they raised us Catholic, and we're regular churchgoers. We were part of the parish community growing up. And when you go through a divorce, you got to turn to somebody. And sometimes it's not your parents at first; it's just your brothers at times. But I was also able to turn to my faith, turn to God, and He saw me through those times, and also times throughout the rest of my life, to the point where I actually entered a seminary after high school and went to the seminary for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Ron?
And so many businesses don't make it, startups. So I admire your ability to start it up. And you started this right before the financial crisis. How does your family dynamic, the divorce and then your brothers picking on you, how does that help you navigate those early years of your business?
Sure. So, when I started the business with my partner, we went through a couple of crises. One was the financial crisis, 2008, losing clients, maybe hard to get a loan we were looking forward to getting. 2010, I actually lost my partner to cancer. So, my oldest brother in particular, but my whole family, but they showed me that, listen, even during tough times, you got to be strong and you got to rely on other people. And I was able to rely on them for guidance, leadership, and support. And, made sure that as a company, we stayed together as a team, and we relied on one another to help each other out get through those tough times.
Jessica?
Ryan, you mentioned in the green room earlier that you previously worked for organizations where the CEO isn't present, and you're present. Why is that important to you?
Well, look, when you're working in an organization, especially our size, which is relatively small, I mean, the people around you get to know you, and they expect to see your leadership. You're providing, as Ron has said in the past, you're providing vision, and you need to not only provide vision, but you need to be visible. And it doesn't mean you have to be in the office every day, 8 hours a day, because obviously you're out with clients, you're making other deals happen, et cetera. But they've got to know that you are available, that you're interested in what's going on, and that you're there to lend an ear and support them as needed.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Matthew?
I'm fascinated that you were in the seminary. So like you're growing up, and most kids, when they're running away from religion, what was it in your childhood that pointed you towards religion, towards embracing it in that way?
Well, I think that, again, the adversity led me that direction. I actually consulted the Bible on my own when I was about 7th grade and kind of found it to be very fascinating, learned a lot of things from it. I told you guys earlier, too, that my first jobs were in landscaping. So I spent a lot of time behind a lawnmower. And when you're doing that, you get a lot of time to think. It's one of the things I miss about not mowing my lawn anymore. But yeah, you have time to think about things about life, what's most important in life. And those jobs gave me the opportunity to think about things a little differently than the average person.
I think you just said that in 7th grade, you consulted the Bible to help solve a problem. Tell me what made you do that.
I don't know. Again, my older brothers were in Catholic high school, and they had Bible sitting on the shelf. And I decided I want to look up something one time. I read a couple of pages, and I said, wow, this is something I don't hear about in normal day-to-day conversation. I thought it had a lot of truth to it. And I figured, look, I'm gonna keep investigating this and lean on this as I need to.
Brian, you mentioned you had a lot of time to think about what's important in life. So what's important in life?
Well, there's no doubt about it. What's most important in life to me is God himself, because I believe that we were made to know, love, and serve him in this world and be happy with him in the next. And you do that through your relationships with other people. So then, next to God becomes, your family, my wife, my children, my mom, my dad, my brothers, cousins, etc. And then it becomes everybody else you interact with, right? Friends, strangers. We're asked to be charitable to all. So it's important that you interact with them in a kind and generous way.
I thought you were going to tell me money. This says you're the CEO of KPInterface, and you spoke about the hard times you went through. And I thought it would be about money. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's funny. We had the gospel a couple of weeks ago that said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul in the process, right? So I believe that truth. I know there's a lot of people who made a lot of money, but maybe they suffer in other ways. And I'm looking out for the long term. I've kind of got an eternal plan beyond the life plan, and I'm hoping that the two can jive together, and hopefully at the end of the day, everything will work out.
So
I feel like there's a connection between drumming and going to the seminary and now leading an organization. There's kind of an element of entertainment and being in the front of the stage to all of it. Am I off base? What do you think?
No, you're not. And it's funny because I wouldn't consider it a natural characteristic or a natural ability. I was a shy kid. I was, nervous about getting up in front of people. And to anybody out there who may be like that now, I think it's something that you can learn and you can develop and overcome. And it just takes practice, and it takes support from others too sometimes.
Wow. Brian, what's the website address for this organization known as KPInterface?
Yeah, it's KPInterface.com.
Where'd the KP interface come from? Where'd that name come from?
Comes from the first initial, the last two names of the founders. So my partner was Matt Kirby, and I'm Brian Pickell. So the Kirby Pickell is where I came from.
Mm-hmm. KPInterface.com. We've been speaking with Brian Pickell, CEO of KP Interface here on Executive Leaders Radio. And Matthew, can you give us a rundown on who else we've had the opportunity of hanging out with today, please?
Sure, Ken. It's been a lot of fun this morning. We started off with Ron Scheese, the president and CEO of Andesa Services. Then we had Jessica Hirt, the president of Concorde. We followed that with Patrick Maggitti, the provost of Villanova University. And we just wrapped it up with Brian Pickell, CEO of KP Interface.
I would like to thank my wonderful co-host, Matthew Shapiro, for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Help for providing an entertaining and educational show for our listening audience. Matthew, what's the website address of your major law firm and significant law firm here in Philadelphia?
It's Obermayer.com, Obermayer.com.
Let me have that one more time, please.
Obermayer.com.
All right. And thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders, executiveleadersradio.com. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.